allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. And we acknowledge for the record that all board members are present. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. We'll begin with the approval of the minutes for the September 9th, 2024 board meeting. So moved.
A second.
Second by Ms. Chappelle. Any unreadiness? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
The ayes have it. And I move to acknowledge Secretary of State directives, advisory, and memorandum. Item A, Directive 2024-24, Directive 2024-25, Advisory 2024-03, Memorandum 2024-03, and we have a walk-on item, and that is Directive 2024-26, which updates the names and vice president who have been certified by the Secretary of State. Additional candidates were certified after reconsideration of their declarations of intent. The directive supplements the general instructions and candidates to the form of the ballot provided in Directive 2024-23. In addition to the certified writing candidates previously listed in Directive 2024-23, the following names are certified as writing candidates for the offices of President and Vice President respectively. The President, Chris Garrity, the Vice President, Cody Ballard, for President, William Nalbach, the Vice President, Willis Butt, for President, J.J. Bowman, for Vice President, D.B. Bowman, for President, Cornell West, for Vice President, Melina Abdullah.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Chappelle. Any unreadiness? All in favor, aye?
Before we finish, I have a question. So just wanted to ask about item C and the language in the advisory. It's the last bullet point. Sorry, how much you have the explanation. And it reads, the bipartisan team must require any person assisting another with the return of a ballot to complete Form 12P, absentee ballot delivery attestation. So I understand there's been some discussion around Form 12P, but my question here, and hopefully you'll give an update about where that is at some point. You know, I understand that our teams and our workers assist voters and often direct them to, you know, hey, you should do this and you should do that, and they may or may not do it. This language is a little troubling because it seems to make our folks the enforcers of this, you know, our bipartisan team must require, I'm not sure really what that means, and then what kind of position that puts our people in. I mean, it can't be the enforcers of making people fill out the form. So I guess my question is, how are we interpreting that? What is our expectation of our employees? And what happens if, despite our employees' efforts to require them, which I don't really quite get, but to have the voters fill the form out, what if they don't? And the critical question, again, I think I've raised it, is, are we permitted to count ballots if they don't fill out that form? So question is, on this advisory, and I understand it's an advisory, not a directive, but are we going to get some guidance about what really is expected of our employees, our bipartisan teams, to require a voter to fill out the form? I'm not sure. Does that make us the police of it? What are we expecting from them? And they need to know what we expect from them.
So this advisory 2024-03 to date is the only additional information that we have, that all boards have received from Secretary of State's office relative to Directive 2024-21. And at our last board meeting, I indicated that the OAEO, who has a lot of questions and concerns with that directive, we're going to have a call of the legislative committee. And what did happen, I participated in that phone call. And a lot of similar questions around the state as to what do you do when someone doesn't want to complete the form, ballot, you know, it's left, is it eligible for counting or not? And how many names can be on a form and all these types of things. And so it was a good discussion on a comprehensive list. Came out of that, and for OAO leadership, who did have a conversation with Secretary LaRose and some of his staff. From that, the understanding was, and from a webinar that staff were eligible to attend, that a frequently asked question FAQ document was going to be published. That document has not been published. I don't know when it's going to be published. We have acquired a few times since that meeting had happened of Secretary of State staff, and as far as the information we get is it's still in a draft status. So I don't know when that's going to come. We need it yesterday as the absentee opens today. So there's a lot of unanswered questions that we don't know. But what we're going to do is, we will have the form available at our collection site. We will inform voters that if they arrive with more than a ballot and with a family member or disabled voter's ballot, that there's a form here for them to fill out. And hopefully they will, and we'll collect that ballot in the form. If they refuse to do that, I think there's an obligation for us to still collect ballots and not turn people away. So we will, at our collection site, have a ballot bin in which, if an individual just brings their own, they put it in, fine. Or if a person comes and they have a near relative underneath the definition in statute, or a disabled individual, will take that form with the ballot and put it in that box. If they refuse to complete the form, we will have a separate box that we will still collect those ballots, because we need to get that information in. We will and have that there. Now, what, ultimately we'll keep those ballots, and hopefully we will get guidance from the Secretary of State's office, or the lawsuit that's currently going through the court system will be answered, and hopefully will provide some kind of guidance. But the one thing that in Ohio,
Which lawsuit is that?
it is I believe it's the Democratic Party and a few individuals that filed something in the Ohio Supreme Court about a week or two ago, maybe.
About this issue?
About
Form 12P?
the Form 12P itself.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll get some kind of guidance, but when we look to statute, to determine if a ballot is counted, does the 5 fields, name, address, date of birth, ID, and signature, does it match what we have on file with the registration system? And so, this is where not being an attorney, I don't know if it's statute or a directive supersedes statute. I don't think so. So I think ultimately what we're looking for is the correct, that's for matches on that data on there. So again, we're going to do our best to again, educate the individuals. We'll have the information for them on the forms. We'll have them readily available. Of course, that's only available when we are here working that, after hours. There's no one here to administer that. So that's what we're looking to.
Yeah, well, so we're not gonna be, just as we engage and tell our folks collecting or engaging with or interacting with the voters not to be getting, into a boring match or battling or verbal match, but if they are not willing or able to complete the form, we are going to ask them to do it.
Mhm.
Hopefully that will satisfy the must require language here in the advisory. I think that's all we can do, because we ask voters to do lots of things, and sometimes they go, you can't vote here, you gotta vote here, and they, so hopefully that's all. But that language is troublesome to me, and I just we can push to get whatever clarification we can get on all these issues. It'll be helpful. My worst fear is that we'll, at the last minute, and I don't know how we can really say, don't count those ballots, but we need to get some guidance from that. I'm glad to hear that you're gonna segregate, as best you can, those ballots. So, case we have to, demonstrate that we did attempt to comply and to keep track of administering that particular piece.
Right.
Thanks for that.
Thank you. Any other unreadiness on the motion that's on the floor? All right, all in favor, aye? Ayes have it. Thank you. And we'll have our 1801 Superior update. I'm going to ask Mr. Bellotti to tee this up for us.
Sure. So, a couple months ago, Public Works Director, Mike Dever was here and provided, some information regarding, the Board of Elections transition from this building into the 1801 Superior, location, and he had offered at that time to come back, the future meeting and provide more information, and so, many of the board members said, hey, it's time for that update. And so we asked Public Works to appear. Since that last meeting, Tony and I, our Deputy Director Keller and I participate in weekly status meetings with a high-level team of individuals from Public Works and some of the vendors, such as architecture firms and construction management teams, working on the project to, again, work through questions that still need to be answered. One of the biggest things that, in my view, that has happened since that last time is based on construction. Director Keller and I were asked to come up with a modified move-in plan for this agency that would still make the first quarter of 2025 realistic for us to move in, and yet still successfully conduct the May primary next year. And so we did come up with that plan. It will be a two-tiered move-in. So basically, middle of February, we'll have a portion of the individuals go into that building. And so things such as the poll worker department and human resources and fiscal, absentee services, they'll move in at that point in time. And then, because that's a little bit before when it's really their busy time for that May cycle. But things like candidate petition services and registration, that won't happen until mid-March, meaning that all of the statutory deadlines, the January 31st annual campaign finance deadline, the February 5th candidate and issues deadline for the May primary, the charter amendment deadline beginning of March, all those filing deadlines will still happen at this building. Because as you all can understand, you have to notice people where they need to appear to do these tasks. So we're going to continue to do that here. And then once we get through those filings and the corresponding board meetings that go with those to certify all those items, then we will move, again, registration and candidate petition services. This registration, as we know, has to validate the signatures on these petitions. So then that would move after that point. And we would conduct early in-person voting for the May election in the new space. So there are some, we worked very hard on, these are the windows, and we explained it, and Public Works appreciated that and said, we will work with you to make that work. They have employed a moving coordinate, I don't know, it's probably not the correct term, but a moving coordinating firm to work on all this, and then they're actually going to then hire a moving firm who will work with that coordinating firm to make it all happen. So we don't have anything more to give. This is, it's either this or 2026. And so, and I don't think anyone wants the 2026 option, especially because we have the September primary next year, and this is a Cleveland year.
Right.
So that filing deadline is already in June. So it's, next year is, this year, crazy big volume. Next year, nonstop from election to election to election, which in some instances is even more challenging than the volume. So that's what we have with that, but we did invite Public Works to come in today, and they can get more into some of the mechanics and better explain what they do than my layman's terms with some of those things.
Thank you, Director. Someone here from Public Works. Thank you. Chair recognizes the individuals from Public Works. Welcome, if you'd please identify yourself for the record.
Sure. Good morning, Board of Elections and staff. John Myers on behalf of the Department of Public Works. I apologize for my director, Mike Dever, who is engaged in an annual conference in Columbus today, so he could not be here with us. So I'm here with my colleague, Paul Sturman, who's a senior project manager in the Department of Public Works. And we're here just to touch base and give an update and hopefully try and answer any questions that you might have regarding the current status of the project. I think Director Prelati gave a pretty good summation as far as where we're at, that we're looking for February 1st move date that we're been working backwards from to put in place to make sure things are all ready to go. So as a general reminder, this is a $50 million lease that the county entered into. The space that you'll be occupying on even on the first floor in the new in 1801 is the same or size or larger than this whole building combined. So you're increasing your space, you're moving into a newer and better working environment for your employees and for the voting public. We have arranged over $500,000 of new furniture will be incorporated. That I'm not sure, Tony, if this table is coming or not, but I think there's mostly all new furniture except for some equipment and some more recent updated furniture. So we have increased your space and increased your parking to bring you into the hard work that you all have been doing to meet our ever-changing voting habits here in Cuyahoga County and around the state. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have at this time.
I have a couple. Thank you for coming and we appreciate the partnership. Is there anything that you guys are aware of or you think is going to derail the February deadline and timeframe? Because as you know, we have got to get in there and really get things working. So anything that is on the horizon that you foresee might create a problem with meeting that deadline?
To Member Davis, I don't see, we're not foreseeing anything or anticipating anything. However, things, anytime you're dealing with procurement and pieces and parts and equipment, some things are out of our control, but everybody's been working diligently. We have quite a large amount of staff and consultants who are working on this every day to meet those deadlines and to work on the timeline. So I think that we're very hopeful, and I don't see any reason that the date shouldn't be met. But I just have been in enough projects that there are unknown unknowns. But I'm very hopeful and don't see any reason that it shouldn't be met.
Okay. One other question.
Sure.
So one of the issues that we had flagged, and I think there's been discussion around is, the number of other occupants in the building and a number of other agencies that may have to use a space. I know we appreciate that our footprint is going to expand and that has been accounted for. But we wanted, part of the contemplation of the move was that we would have room to grow rather. So I'm just wondering, and we've heard before there was just one or two agencies that would be also sharing the space or occupying the building with us. And just want to find out if that's still the number or if now we have additional agencies of the county that are expected to join in us in that building.
Well, I guess it depends on the definition of agency. It's always been contemplated that, not always, but since this opportunity for this building, as you know, we went out for an RFP and to find you a new home and to meet your growing needs. The solution that we came up with one is the 1801. The other ones, for various reasons, weren't really suitable to seemingly to meet your needs. As it ended up, the 1801 project fiscally could really only move forward. It was sort of bigger than, as a whole, building and campus, bigger than fiscally was contemplated for the Board of Elections. So that's where, in order to make this very unique site, as far as a downtown central location, significant parking, visibility, et cetera, we partnered with another county agency, which is Health and Human Services. So obviously within HHS, there's different divisions within that. So it's still just one county group, HHS, that's going to be in there. But what breakdown of different departments within HHS is still somewhat work in progress. I believe Department of Senior and Adult Services is one of the lead agencies within HHS that's contemplated to be there. So one agency, Health and Human Services, but they have different departments under.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that. I understand HHS. I mean, that's a big portion of the mission of the county is to serve folks through HHS. So I understand it's a big, almost behemoth kind of part of the operation of the county. But that's my point. I mean, we need to figure out, you know, which of those, how many, you know, maybe agencies or how many bodies, extra bodies will there be in the building, because that impacts the number of spaces, that we have parking spaces and all of those things, impacts, you know, what the voters are able to do. So we really do need to nail down, I can appreciate, you know, the cost associated with it and the need to make sure that all that works out. But, you know, we've kind of been down this road before, and this was billed as a county board of elections building. And we appreciate the efforts to make sure everybody can live there. We gotta know who's gonna be there with us and how many bodies that will be, I won't say agencies or divisions of the agencies or whatever. HHS is huge. How many more people will be in the space with us, because it impacts our operation in a significant way. So we need to nail that down. And I actually had asked about the potential for having a sublease agreement, because, you know, we're gonna continue to, you know, the numbers will continue to morph. You know, it's these groups, and that we at some point have got to have some finality and some definitive numbers on who's gonna be there with us. From my perspective, we need to be memorializing that in a sublease document so that everybody, to me, and maybe it's just because I'm a lawyer, but when I see it in writing, I can stand on it, I can believe it, I know it's not gonna change. And at some point, we've gotta get to, and I don't mean to shoot the messenger, and we had this conversation with Mr. Dever. So I just think we have to get some firm numbers on the number of people from HHS that are gonna be in that building with us, so.
Actually, can I piggyback off that, do you mind? When we did have this meeting, and why my colleague's making this point, we actually did drill down into what parts of HHS would be there. And it was my understanding, and I felt presented to this body, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there was sensitivity to the public access portion, the needs for the board of elections, high traffic with election time, a lot of public access year round with candidates and filings and all the deadlines we have going year round. So it was, I thought, presented that the HHS portions would be those that really aren't customer frontage. You know, in other words, there weren't clients or people who needed services in and out for those specific departments. It was more administrative. And I thought there was that sort of pledge, or at least understanding. If that's not the case, that is something I think we do need to drill down into, because that involves parking spaces, access. And the whole point of this as well is to make this so easily accessible to our voters. And I don't want to get into a competition for parking spots, or have someone who needs services have a hard time getting into those. Particularly, I think you said, you know, elderly, or those maybe with health issues or needs that need to get into the building. And we don't make it difficult for them either. But as my colleague noted, this is the primary Board of Elections building. So that's why I think it is important for this body to note that. Also, real quick, other piggyback point, there was a private entity in there, and I understand that there was talk of maybe this lease not being extended with them, or them being sort of phased out at some point, and that being maybe our possible room to grow. I don't know what the status is with that, or thoughts to the future. So just want to jump in because I concur in your comments. Thank you.
Certainly, I'll try and capsulize all those together. First of all, the other tenant is Step Forward, which previously was known as the Greater Cleveland Council on Economic Opportunities. That is their main headquarters on the fourth floor of 1801 that they have their own lease on. We have so it's that lease is under their control, so we don't have any say as to that.
That's the only
that space.
tenant there, other
Yes.
than, right, correct, okay, just kidding.
So it's just, and they're isolated, for lack of a better word, they're confined to the fourth floor.
Right,
We've made known to them that we would, I don't know how to politely say, like to see them find a new home eventually, but we don't have control over that, but we've
right,
laid that foundation and hope to have continuing discussions once we get everyone in. Secondly, as to the HHS components of this, because we've been focused on getting you guys set up, the Board of Elections set up has been a priority. So we've been focused on getting that done on a time frame. So the HHS component is a step or two behind, even though it's pretty close. So the numbers are not a fixed thing. I will say senior and adult services, even though it might sound like a lot of, they don't have too many visitors to their agency. They're mostly through phone work and going out into the community. So
but do understand that when this was presented, it was that these aren't front-facing parts of
yes, and
that, so,
that, frankly,
okay.
it's not changed. So
Okay, that's what I wanted to do.
we're conscious of that. And,
Okay.
your executive director and assistant are very good advocates for the interest of the Board of Elections.
Thank you.
We've had our backs and forths in lively discussions, so you can be assured that the BOE's needs and point of view is well represented on a daily and weekly basis as we work through these issues. So the continued focus has been to keep with that thought of having HHS agencies that have limited or less visitor content. I can't say nobody's gonna have any visitors, but they aren't agencies that primarily service walk-in clients, customers, whatever
Okay.
term you'd like to use. So
All right,
that still is in, and we'll talk to.
We
Public
need a
Works
new
about that.
building because the lights are.
I'll talk to Public Works about the
there you go.
electrical here, so.
Yeah.
So that's still the goal.
Okay,
And the need, and I believe that the building it's actually a beautiful building and a significantly larger building. I think for everyday operations, you folks are gonna not have any problem. There should be lots of elbow room. As far as the parking, we will be working, and some of this is to work out, just like the election cycle, we're working on different parking lots around here. In this case, we'll be more under control rather than relying on separate third-party entities and their goodwill and ability to lease to us. We will be looking, and have already had those conversations with Step Forward about we may need your cooperation during these high volume times. So our goal is to, been well schooled and well educated and are sensitive to all those needs, and I think they continue to be the driving centerpiece of decisions as we face them. So the HHS piece is still a work in progress, but there will be a significant HHS presence in the building. But I think that election time that we'll be making that work, and I think it's gonna work well for the Board of Elections.
And Mr. Myers, the other
Yes.
thing too, that the overarching piece of this is that we're always concerned about security. The building has to be secure,
Sure.
and that the fewer moving parts you have, the easier it is to secure it. So it's not that, you know, we're mean people and we don't want folks coming in here, but we have statutory and public expectations
Right,
of a certain level of security that comes with an agency such as ours that's unique to us, that other agencies, quite frankly, don't have to contend with. So that's always the overarching theme of us at this table
Yes.
is security, physical, cyber, anything that goes under security
right.
as it relates to the nations doing our work.
And of course, we're sensitive to that additional level of deed that the BOE has and have incorporated that into all of our planning. I know your leadership has educated us to ongoing, you know, Secretary of State directives, and we'll be all compliant with that. And you know, Mr. Sturman and myself, you know, have toured the building as well as our outside consultants with the Sheriff's Department, planning and, you know, identifying needs with our access control people, with our security camera folks. So it's a comprehensive up and down and all around the town review of the needs of the site and the building. So those are still being massaged right now, and but the sheriff is conscious of this, as well as the landlord has some security on site as well. And we'll be investing significant dollars in enhancing what's already currently.
Can we drill down even to, you know, the entrance and exits and parking lots where we put our drop box for there to be 24/7 access for that, security cameras? I mean, it goes all the way to every part of every blade of grass on that property.
We've had no shortage of discussion on, I like your phrase, literally every blade of grass. We're conscious of that, and we're always happy to be reminded and educated where we may have overlooked something or whatever, but security is something extremely conscious of and centerpiece to our planning here, so that not only your people and the voting public, but the institution that you're representing here and the franchise is well protected.
One last question for me. You mentioned that, you know, the HHS piece is one or two steps behind in terms of
Yes.
the planning. When can we count on that planning being completed so that we can really know that these are the numbers of folks that will be in from HHS? When will those one or two steps be caught up so that we can know that the planning is now finalized?
In the very, you know, before the end of the year, before I'm hoping even Thanksgiving, we should have some more solid numbers to be able to share with you. So you know, we're working this. I mean, we have Public Works has several million square feet of space that we have oversight of, at least owned, and you know, so we're used to making buildings work. So I feel comfortable with our own knowledge and experience, let alone that we're bringing in, you know, architects and design engineers, and you know, as I said, we just over $500,000 in new furniture. That involves, you know, drilling down to how many chairs, how many,
Right.
so I mean, I think
That's to my point. If they're moving, if those agencies are gonna be moving,
yeah,
you gotta have a runway and ability to know how many chairs you're ordering for them to be in the new building. So
yeah.
just concerned, the closer we get to the holidays, things fall off. So if you're saying you think you might finalize that around Thanksgiving, that might be, I mean, I don't know.
That's what I'm hopeful. I didn't have a different date.
Yeah, I mean, HHS will not likely be moving in until the first of their leases drop off, which will be the end of 25, physical number of deaths and bodies. What I will say is unique for HHS and maybe for the county as a whole as we go forward, there's a hybrid work policy, which really will complicate in some ways the exact numbers. Particularly for DSAS, the senior adult group, they're not in their offices very often. While they have a home base, most of their work is done in the community. So those numbers might be skewed a little bit because you may have two people assigned to one desk. And in practical sense, they may not even ever be at that desk. So we're working through with the management and the administration of HHS in conjunction with the, you know, the executive team here to find out what makes sense for everybody. The overarching goal, and I think both Tony and Tony can speak to this, the HHS leadership has said they will accommodate the BOE, particularly the BOE's needs during any voting period.
So we're not hearing any other agencies coming, other than the senior protective or.
Senior adult services and a few other smaller ancillary agencies, but they're all really back office, for lack of a better term, functions. They're not client heavy at all.
Okay,
So they don't have a public interface, and that was done with intentionality because of the needs of the public needs of the BOE. We really were trying to marry what makes sense overall as a county goal. What agencies would make sense to co-locate. So to the best extent that we can in conjunction with, you know, architects and design firms, that's what we, you know, where we've been at. And again, Tony and Tony have been involved in these discussions as well. We try to really, obviously, they do a good job advocating for you guys.
okay.
Any other questions? Mr. McCaffrey?
Is there any report on the actual progress of the building itself, the space itself? I mean, like security or phone lines, those things ongoing or haven't
Yes,
started yet, or?
To, remember, it's, in fact, if you go over there now, it hadn't been there before. I mean, demolition is well underway and,
Demolition is complete, as a matter of fact.
yeah,
Oh, good.
thank you, yeah, so that part, that phase is over, so it's in earnest. We'll be starting the wiring, hopefully shortly. And, you know, equipment has been ordered. We've asked and asked again, because procurement is always a challenge, as a public agency and just in general, as far as supplies and delivery. So so that's all happening. The permitting is happening for the parking lot is before the planning commission next week. So all those pieces and parts are being put together, and physical work has actually started on the building. So I think I'm good, stead for meeting your deadline.
That's good.
One pivot, there's never a final question, I
Sure.
apologize.
Final.
Yeah, final, maybe. Just to pivot from 1801, in our Hallie building, we've asked Public Works in the past to help us. We have power strips and cords hanging from the ceilings in the building we use to tabulate and things that we have folks over there. Can we get some, we asked at the last, after the last election, if Public Works could get the electrical folks over there to help us out, to clean up, you know, hanging. I mean, you know, it's, I don't know if you've been over there, but we've got like, you know, cords, electrical cord, it looks crazy, from an electrical standpoint. And I don't know, I just think, you know, I don't know, if anything you can do to help us,
Yes,
not only at 1801, but over at the Hadley Warehouse.
Right.
It's really bizarre, the way you look up at the ceiling and there's power surge strips and we really need to get that cleaned up. So since you're Public Works and you guys have a direct line to the folks that can get this done, if you could somehow.
evidently not, with the other lights. But I hear you, I hear you, we'll take that back. I do
Thank you.
believe we're conscious of the need, and we've been told that. I would just add that appearance in the warehouse setting is, I mean, they're designed to be, it's not uncommon in industrial settings that the power be hanging from the ceiling. They're on retractable cords so that they're very safe and appropriate,
Yeah,
so.
that's not what this is.
It may be some.
That's not what this is, so I'm not an electrician, but I can tell you.
I just want to make clear that those were intentional
Yeah.
choices, but we will find out what, but I will say this, that, you know, we have invested millions of dollars in warehouse, and recently, obviously, thankfully and happily, just got the new freight, which was, you know, $600,000 just to rehab it, and was well needed, and we continue to invest, and will continue to improve that, and we'll focus on the electrical to see what we can do
Thank you.
on that. So,
Thank you.
Perfect.
Any other comments from the board? Well, Mr. Myers, Mr. Sturman, thank you so
Thank you
much
very
for
much.
coming with
Thank
us.
you.
And we look forward to continuing our work with them.
good luck this next month.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item 4, modification of vote by mail ballot collection program. The board, for the record, we did approve, a procedure, I think at our previous meeting,
Yes.
but we have a modification, and Director Pilati will give us some, more texture to that, and then we will take the appropriate action.
Yes, so this is, the chairman Curtis's point. The board approved at the last meeting, the concept of outside ballot collection here at the board, and as things evolved, I think that there was an understanding that we would bring that back and inform everyone,
Right.
but the actual collection, it was still to be had. And so what I have done is, the document is updated, the collection document, really with 3 main points. The background, I just updated it to be relevant to today, instead of what the vote by mail was a few weeks back. The actual collection itself initially was to happen in the turn lane on East 30th. Since then, the Secretary of State's office, the legal counsel, has authorized the board to collect in Campus International. And we did get that in an email, so I have it in writing, and that's where we had collected ballots in 2020. And so put that change of physical location into the document, and then as well as incorporated in Directive 2024-21 and Advisory 2024-03, which we talked a little bit about earlier today, which speaks to the board. In fact, in the advisory, Secretary LaRose encourages traffic ball boards to engage in a drive-through collection spot for traffic mitigation, and states that the 12P form can be collected by those teams staffing that collection. And so those are the modifications to the document. The hours and days, as previously presented, stayed the same, but just wanted to bring the document up to what the current what the current reality is of this.
Yeah.
We have a standalone operational information that staff that we came up with on what we will do on the day-to-day and how we collect and the seals and how we do all those types of things, which aren't part of the concept of it, but that's the in the weeds procedures that staff always create for everything. And so this is just my opinion, why I'm of the opinion that this is already approved, and I was providing an update. Whether the board needs to actually take action on that or not is, I will defer to
And
the bigger group.
we will, because I've received advice on
Okay.
that. So any questions on the modification?
Just a
Yeah, please.
couple, so that's a great, the modification and the approval, I think, from the Secretary of State and the amendment clarification to the original directive
Mhm.
is helpful, because that directive did originally say they had to come inside the building to get the P form and for us to administer that. So this is welcome news
Yeah.
on that. Just wondering though, given that you updated this to include the current data, about 145,000 vote by mail ballot applications as of October 3rd. Are we gonna have enough staff to handle? I honestly, I know you don't have a crystal ball. And I am so thrilled about the frenzy and the crowds we're seeing downstairs already. Are we gonna have enough staff, bipartisan teams, to handle that collection? Are you confident, and do we have a contingency plan in case we need to assign more folks? I know there was language that said you had the ability to assign, the director had the ability to assign other staff, but so that gives me some comfort, but how are you on the numbers, and have you thought through, what happens if they're inundated? Given the problems with the post office and people's concerns about whether or not they should be mailing it to make sure it gets back, I anticipate a lot of people, once they hear about the collection site, are gonna be coming down to drop off ballots. So,
So.
any contingency planning on the numbers there?
So, yes, I'm confident that we'll have, good staffing. Our schedule is 6 individuals staffing it at all times. So obviously the minimum is you need 2, but we will have 6 that will be there,
So
so
3 teams.
3 teams, 3 teams that will be there. So they will be able to, cover breaks, lunches, as we have large volume, what, part of the process is going to be. The collection tent at Camp International is kind of towards the end of the longer driveway. Working with the print shop, we have the 12P forms that are on tablets that we can just rip off quickly. We have clipboards, so we will start to stack those clipboards, and we will work for the line of cars as they're waiting to come to the tent to get them to, engage in the question, are you delivering more than 1 ballot? So as a family member, we had that conversation, we talked about, here's the form that you need to provide, give them the clipboard, and they can do that as they approach and then collect those. We also have designated another spot right around the corner, like the closest spots to the tent, in which those will be, because that parking lot's also voter parking, but we have about 5 or 6 spots that those are designated, not for voter parking, but if we need to keep people moving along, they can park there. It'll be signed, so they can sit there. They'll have the form, and then we'll be able to send a bipartisan team to the car, so they don't have to get out to help collect. So we will be able to work the line. We'll be able to have parking spots and the actual tent itself. If,
3 teams are gonna do all that?
yeah,
Okay.
well, from our experiences in 2020, I think we should be okay with
Okay.
that. Now, if we need more, there's 2 areas that we'll, call upon. We'll go to our current poll worker ranks, because a lot of times they will like to get some additional hours and work prior to election day. So we will go to that pool, because we've utilize them for other things, like some of the individuals who are working in the early in-person room, like they'll cover the lunch period, they're poll workers. They come and do that. So we have that at our fingertips, as well as the county is already helping us out, providing 2 employees every day for that. And if I need to get more from them, yesterday I had a meeting with the county executive leadership, Chief of Staff Eric Janis. Anything I need, let them know, and they'll help. So I think as we evolve and we see how it goes, I will be able to get additional staff if need be.
I'm sorry, that's Starling. Is there any way, what are we gonna do? Because that's a lot to require people to get the form when we first pull up and fill it out. Are we posting the 12P form on our website? Are there other ways that we're getting that form out so that people can come with it in hand? Just to me, it just seems like if there's other ways that we can get the media or get folks to know in advance, this is what they need to have. It might help us in our ability to administer that on that site at that moment. So what are we doing to get that form out ahead of time? To folks?
Sure. So I'm gonna take a piece of my update and talk about it now.
No, I'm sorry.
No. This is relevant because it's timely. So we will, yesterday we had a press conference. We educated the media on what this is. I'll continue to do that. This Friday will be the first Facebook Live, and so we'll push that out. So we'll continue to harp on that. On our website, we have created a specific standalone box. It is, unless they moved it, currently it is, we have 4 boxes on the homepage. It is at the bottom center. It is a early in-person absentee ballot collection box, and that's all that deals with there. So clicking on that, the collection, in there, it talks about what the hours that we'll be doing it. Has the map of how to go, so it's actually an overhead of the parking lot. You come in here, you go there, you do that. And then there is a blurb on the 12P that speaks to what it is, and you click on that and you can produce it right there. So we will not only have it at the site, but we will continue to encourage and tell people, if you know that you are coming down with a family members or a disabled voter's ballot, go to the website and you can go ahead and get that form and have it in hand to try to do that. So we will work with the political parties to have them push it out through their channels, the media. And again, we didn't want it being buried in our website, so we gave it a prominent place so people understand what it is. So we'll do that, and then as we go along, we'll figure out what more we need to do depending on what the as we live it and we see it, it actually doesn't start till this Friday, because there is no ballot to come today, because they're outbound today.
Maybe the Secretary of State can mail it out to voters.
Um,
All right.
finish your reading exam. But, we did try to contemplate putting it in the vote by mail pack, but because we have a 3-page ballot, we don't have any more inserts
Yeah.
in there. And the other thing we're trying to do is we want to also educating individuals. If you are returning your ballot by mail, you don't have to do the form. You don't need to put that in there.
Right.
So trying to let them understand that here's where it's relevant is when you come during this schedule to us that you need to do it. So
It's a lot for voters to take in. Whenever there's a change like this, though, it's really hard, but the extent that we could get in front of it and not have it, all that administration happening at the site, because I think 3 teams may not be enough.
and you may absolutely be correct. And
I don't know,
well, but
but we need to prepare, because 145,000, people do not have faith that the post office is going to deliver. I just think people are gonna be coming down more than we think because of the concerns about the timing of getting the ballot to the post office, having them delivered, having it get back to us, so.
So, but that's one thing that we're good at, I think, is adjusting, and, not being stubborn. It's like, okay, we need to grow and with this and add it. So I think we're good. Another thing that we've also done is we've identified a temporary employee, who will be working with Peter James. And she's gonna be the, one who on a daily basis will, make sure we have all the security seals and everything is there. She'll touch base with absentee and ballot and early in person, and kind of, so we've designated a specific person to help make sure that we have all our supplies, that everyone is communicating, that we're, chain of custodies are being utilized and all those types of things. So we have elevated, this process with the oversight, because CPS they're worried about what's going on downstairs, absentees dealing with all the mail, and Clary is trying to scan everything. So Peter became the person, but he also has other things, so we gave him a strong temporary employee to help us with that too.
Mr. McCaffrey, did you have a?
Yeah, real quick question. These forms, these 12 Ps, does there have to be a form for each individual ballot that you're maybe dropping off? Because you said last meeting, you drop off 8.
Sure, so that was a question we asked for clarity on. We didn't get an answer on that, so for us, for administration, we would allow people to put multiple names on there. So like for me, I would put my wife and my daughters on there and just turn in one form with those 3 ballots. Just as long as they.
Just, I was
numbers
curious, because this affects if people gotta fill out 5 of them while they're sitting in their car, well, why enough? It's
Yeah,
certainly-
until told otherwise officially, and officially meaning the SOS report, we're going to allow all the allowable family members to appear on the one form that the voter
That
will
makes sense.
sign.
It's gonna be a nightmare if they can't do that.
Well, that makes sense.
Any other questions or comments on the modification? All right,
Yeah.
so we've already approved ballot collection program, so I'm gonna move to adopt this modification to go in conjunction with what we've already approved.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Ms. Chappelle, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
The ayes have it, it is so ordered, thank you. On to ballot, I move the acknowledgement of the ballot proofs for the November 5th, 2024 presidential and general election in accordance with the ballot proofing policy approved by the board on March 12th, 2021.
I'll second that
Second by
motion.
Ms. Chappelle, any in readiness? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
The ayes have it, I move the final approval of the ballot order for the November 5th, 2024 presidential election under tab 6. Mr. Perlotti, anything you want to share on this?
I'll just give you, I'll just kind of reiterate, some of the justification that was utilized, to come up with this. plan. We internally here looked at election day specifically election day turnout per precinct, in multiple elections. And we then, took the election day turnout and divided it by the number of registered voters at that point, because we have that information in history to see what that percentage was on a per precinct basis. Then wherever whatever election had that highest percentage turnout, we grabbed that number for that specific precinct and pulled all those forward. We also then looked at those same elections and looked at the election provisional turnout. We sought out where was the highest provisional turnout from those elections, and we brought that number forward. And so our ballot order, we applied that highest election day turnout with the provisionals in there. And once we had that number, then we ordered an additional 20% of that. So we matched what the highest was, and we allowed for a 20% growth. We did that throughout the county. So that is our baseline ballot order that will be going out to the polls. Which, and honestly, the higher the turnout, the ballot order actually becomes a little bit easier because it's already a lot. It can only get so big. But one thing we're going to do in this election, and this will be new for the first time, is we're gonna look to the vote by mail usage that we're having for this election. Because it's actually, why it was strong, it is slowing, and it's kind of falling behind where we were like in 12 and 16. So 12 days out before the election, we're gonna see on a per precinct basis, what was the percentage of voters in that precinct that utilized vote by mail? And then we're gonna look to see what is it today. And if it is like substantially lower, and substantial is to be determined at that point in time, Tony and I will put in another ballot order. So for example, if a precinct, say, previously they had 25% of their voters voted by mail, and what we're seeing is only 18% is doing that, we're gonna go ahead and order an additional round of ballots and keep those here at this building. So we will have Midwest print them, they'll be shrink wrapped, and we'll have them on our wall. We're still gonna have our on-demand process, but if there are certain, for whatever reason, if there's certain individuals who don't want to use the vote by mail because they just are not interested in this election, I don't think the overall turnout's gonna go down. I think the method in which they cast their ballot, in person, by mail, or at the polls, that will stay consistent, so they will shift how they do that. So we will have additional ballots here, pre-printed and wrapped, to be able to dispatch right away if we have to, if it looks like we match the highest turnout, and it looks like we're going to go over that additional 20%, we'll have that at our fingertips. And if anything else different happens, then we have our whole process downstairs, where again, we will monitor throughout the day the ballots we issue, and we'll be able to print. But seeing that there's this trend that it is slowing in the vote by mail, we want to accommodate for that. We want to be proactive and make sure that we have enough, because I think if we're still going to have like a 71% turnout, we're going to have an increased number of people going to the polls. Okay, we lose everybody on that.
Question on the final
Yeah.
ballot order. What is the significance of the polling locations that are highlighted in red?
Those are split precincts.
Oh, those, okay,
Yeah.
all right, great. We need a little footnote or something, or maybe have.
It's probably not in there.
I couldn't find it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Very thorough, yeah.
Oh,
Is it in there?
okay.
That's a poll.
It's open.
And then just one additional thing, Deputy Richard Kelly and I are very happy the ballot department has done a great job, but we're happy to have our security blanket, Brian Cleary, back with us in his crutches.
Yeah.
That institutional knowledge is just invaluable, having that there, so.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Curlati. Any other questions on the ballot order? So the motion is before us. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. Thank you so much. Now the candidate of petition services, I move to acknowledge the death in office with sadness and with our sympathies to his family and constituents, to George Papcom, Lindale Village Council, member of council, and for the record, age 92 and served almost 55 years in that capacity. So we move to acknowledge his death. We also move to acknowledge the resignation from public office of Robert DeJohn, Mayfield Heights City Council, member of council. And we move the appointment to elected office of James Puffenberger, Brattleboro Village Council, member of council, Brian Evans, Lakewood City Council, member of council, Ward 2, and Wayne Robertson, Lindale Village Council, member of council.
Second that.
Second by Mr. Chappelle. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. On to election support. I move the authorization to process payment in the amount not to exceed $45,620 for 95 private voting locations. And that includes 3 CMHA properties being used for the November 5th, 2024 presidential general election. Second by Ms. Chappelle, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
The ayes have it. And I move the final authorization for the allocation of voting booths for the November 5th, 2024 presidential general election, and the information is in our agenda.
Second.
Second by Ms. Chappelle, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it, thank you. And on to fiscal services, we have a few resolutions. Director Perlotti, do you or our manager have anything you want to share?
I'll just quickly, give an update just on all 3 of them, and then you can approve as you so choose. Letter A is, that is our van drivers that take the cargo vans on election night. The bid was let, and Law Enforcement Management Solutions, also goes by LEMS, was the lowest responsive bidder. They have done this work. They did it in March, and they were actually, they were good to work with. So as we needed replacements, they were very proactive in doing that. So that's letter A. Letter B is we're purchasing some more computers. Previously, we bought some computers with some Secretary of State grant dollars, and we're purchasing additional, and this is with the IT appropriation given by county OBM. And the reason for all these computers being purchased is one of the security requirements from Secretary of State LaRose has to do with the operating systems. In 2025, all computers here at any board of elections that operate on Windows 11. We have a lot of computers because of our temporaries, almost 200 of them. About half of them are upgradable to Windows 11 and half of them aren't. And so what we're doing is we are getting some of these in play today, and then the other ones we're getting them ready for when we do move in February. We'll be able to not even have to set up those I'll call dated computers, and we can install the new ones. So that's what.
Before you move on,
Yeah.
but why were the bid amounts so varied for this? There were as low as $31,000 and as high as $71,000. And there were quite a few people that bid on this, but I'm just trying to figure out if it's for a desktop, 40 desktop computers. It seems like that's it's a big gap. So what was the difference, if you know, between those bids from so we're gonna presumably let a contract at the lower amount, 31,000 for all these computers, but they were all over the place, 60,000, and the highest was 71,000. For this, presumably the same specs, what was if you know, why was there such a why were there so very bid amounts?
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know why with such a big range. I am happy to see that there are a handful, 4 or 5 that came in though close to those. And so when we let this go, it wasn't for a specific computer. It needed to have, for example, like an Intel 5 chip, needed to have whatever, 8 RAM, 16 this, so it had that. And it needed to be either a Dell or an HP, because some of the computers are on a different Secretary of State list that they are We're not supposed to purchase those brands because of where the manufacturer and supply chain. So,
No, I understand that, but, because on one of the other, items, there's a notation if the bids are not compliant with the specs, so I'm just curious, you know, the specs being the same, why we got so many different, and no, there's no notation in this item that, any of the bidders, you know, were disqualified because their bids were non-responsive.
Yeah.
I just like us to be careful and not always go with the lowest and, I mean, yes, we are dealing with public money, but the lowest bid is not always the best. Just wondering, somebody that's taken a look at why we're going with them, as opposed to somebody that gave us a bid for the same thing. The same specs, the same computers at some slightly higher, $70,000 may be out of the ballpark, and there may be some reason for it. But there's no notation that these bidders were non-responsive. So presumably they're all bidding on the same spec. The numbers are all over the place. Just wondering.
so what I can do is, we'll send you an email to all the board
Okay.
following, from fiscal.
That'd be great.
I will say that when these IT type things come in, our IT department is, involved on the front end, we're creating the specs. When they come in, they're involved in reviewing the specs that come in, and ultimately, the county has a technical assistance commission in which Robin Noy is a member of that, and then other county IT that we need to bring it before them. So they do look at it too, to make sure that, it's legit stuff. But why the range? We'll get you that
Thank
information.
you.
Thank you.
And then just, and then just lastly, C, C is, these are the, collapsible the literature boards that we're sending out to the polls for this election. These are getting paid for with the Secretary of State grant. That's to assist poll workers and voters on election day. You may recall, Deputy Director Gallagher, displayed one over there before, and I think it had 12 pockets, and so that went out to bid, and we've received those. Now, we did get multiple bids on this, and we did not go with the lowest one because
2 of them were disqualified.
Yes.
And it was noted that, yeah.
so it wasn't like one of them was only 8 pockets and they're different, and so we went with what we needed. And as a side note, Deputy Director Calver worked with election support and the poll department to get all the documents in there and printed, and I think it's gonna be a really nice tool with voters when they go into the poll place. Some of those key things will just kind of get them right there, because when you're in a gym or somewhere else, the closest wall may not be close.
So this includes bags as well. It doesn't say it, and I think that the detail said included the displays, the signs, and bags. Is that correct?
It's just the carry case.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Carry case. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so those are
Pretty
the
important.
3 things that.
All right, thank you. So I'll move the approval of the resolutions for items A, B, and C inclusive as presented.
Second.
Second by Ms. Chappelle, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. Thank you so much. And now we move on to registration, and Mr. Pilati and Mr. Hassan Wheat can see this up for us as we have several challenges before us.
So we do have 5 challenges today that we will go through each one individually. They were timely filed for elections. Yesterday, just as a side note, yesterday was the deadline for any additional registration challenges to come forward. So anything that would come at today and up to election day would be deemed untimely, and we sent a letter dismissing that. What you'll probably hear from Mr. Weed is very similar situations to some of the challenges that we had previously in the year, as far as an individual or a couple who have owned a residence for some period of time, and then recently have received some kind of notification, whether it was a board of election acknowledgement or other campaign literature to their home, that caused those homeowners to look and see, geez, who is registered at my address? And then reach out with the appropriate paperwork for today's hearings. So with that,
Mr. Wheat.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Hassani Wheat, Registration Manager. The first challenge was filed by Mary Lynn Pesto against John Grayson. So you should have before you challenge 257. Challenge of the right to vote and correction of registration list that was submitted by Mrs. Mary Lynn Pesto and received by the Board of Elections on September 10th, 2024. Mrs. Pesto, a registered voter in Cuyahoga County, is challenging the voter residency of John T. Grayson. Mrs. Pesto noted in her voter challenge that she has no idea who John T. Grayson is and that Mr. Grayson does not live at 19831 Renwood Avenue in Euclid. The registration department received a phone call from Mrs. Pesto on September 3rd, 2024, who indicated that she received a vote by mail application from the Secretary of State's office in John T. Grayson's name, which prompted her voter challenge. Per the Cuyahoga County Property Summary Report, Mrs. Pesto owned the property at 19831 Renwood Avenue in Lakewood, in Euclid, since March of 1998. John T. Grayson has had no voter activity since initially registering in September of 2022. Further, the voter registration form that's on file for John T. Grayson was circulated by Blackboard Strategies.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wheat. Is Ms. Pesto present or on Zoom? Ms. Pesto is not present and she's not on Zoom. Is Mr. Grayson present or on Zoom? For the record, neither are present. We've had Mr. Wheat tell us that we have the C-57 where Ms. Pesto attests that she has no idea who this person is. He's never lived at 19831 Renwood Avenue, and therefore his voter registration should not be active. Any questions from the board?
I have a question. So I noticed in these specific, persons brought for today, for challenges. This is the one though, that it seems like the issue goes back to 2022. The others seem more recent in time than the last couple of months. I guess it does indicate that this person never was fully active on our roster because there was missing information and other things, that were questionable. I guess, what's the process, maybe even moving forward, if someone's flagged, do we just let them remain inactive, or is this something that maybe moving forward will bring forward sooner if we're unable to? You know what I'm saying, like, is to have someone out there without complete information at this point, and he's still getting notifications too, so I guess that's my question.
Okay, I believe for this voter as well as for a couple of the others.
Right,
It was a situation where there was mismatching information, so there was a BNB confirmation notice that was sent out to the voter. And the voter, if they received it, sometimes they'll send it in and say, the SSN was incorrect, so this is the correct SSN or driver's license. In this case, this person didn't send anything back, so their status remained inactive.
So as an inactive voter,
right.
they still have the opportunity to present that information to rectify the disparity. They can do that at the polls and present photo ID at that time. But what they cannot do is vote by mail. So they would have to rectify it that way prior to being able to vote by mail. So,
Okay, so putting it in that status, make sure that we will correct that.
yeah,
Information.
so,
Okay.
yeah, so
Right.
it's not that necessarily that we're able to put resources towards just discovering what the discrepancy is. As Hassani said, we sent out the
Right.
BNB-SSA letter, asked them to respond and provide, in case they just inverted their, wrote their
Made a
last four
mistake,
down,
right.
made a mistake,
Yeah,
but they could rectify it that way.
So, Mr.
Okay.
Kennedy, what's the appropriate action of the board if this person's inactive? Would it still be to cancel their registration or does it remain? What's?
I mean, that's.
I think it would
that's
be
the
to
decision of
cancel.
It would be.
Yeah, it would be to
Okay, I just
cancel.
wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
and then they'd have to re-register
Okay.
rather than redeem this registration.
Before, remember, Stickman was just a
Yeah.
question regarding.
Right, this sort of process, because I couldn't, understand the distinctions, but appreciate that.
But to your question, I'm just wondering, I mean, the tripwire function is if they actually vote or attempt to vote.
Right.
And that would then, you know, all the bells and whistles would come in terms of verifying whether that, voter has valid registration and could actually legally, cast a ballot, right? So I mean, there's nothing we would do except when it's, you know, this comes to fore in this light. and
Sure.
there's a challenge. That somebody could be inactive, I mean, is that right? Somebody could be inactive for a long period of time.
Right, and then also it would start the clock
It
too.
would start the
6
clock,
years down
the clock,
the
the
road.
voter may, yeah.
They
voter
have no
may-
activity, they would be
Right.
purged at that point.
Okay,
So there
that
are
makes sense.
mechanisms in place with.
That makes sense.
All right, well, then I will put this motion forth. I hope it's correct. I move to uphold the challenge to the right to vote filed by Mary Lynn Pesto against John T. Grayson and cancel his voter registration.
A second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
The ayes have it. It's so ordered. Thank you. We will move on to item 12, Mr. Reed.
Thank you. You should have before you a Form 257, challenge of the right to vote and correction of registration lists that was submitted by Mrs. Evelyn Martin and received by Board of Elections on September 19th, 2024. Mrs. Martin, a registered voter in Cuyahoga County, is challenging the voting residency of Benny J. Bryant. Mrs. Martin noted in her challenge that Benny J. Bryant has never lived at 1394 West 93rd Street, which Ms. Martin also noted that is a single-family home. Per the Cuyahoga County Property Summary Report and Mrs. Martin's voter challenge, Mrs. Martin has either lived or owned the property at 1394 East 93rd Street in Cleveland since February of 1978. Benny J. Bryant has had no voter activity since initially registering in June of 2024. Further, the voter registration form for Mrs. Bryant was circulated by Second Street Associates.
Okay, thank you. Board member, let me first ask, is Evelyn Martin present or on Zoom? Evelyn Martin? If the record, she's not here. Benny Bryant, is Benny Bryant present or on Zoom? Neither are present. Mr. Week, this is a similar fact pattern to
Right.
our previous case. Board members, any questions?
Pretty straightforward.
Hearing none, then I move to uphold the challenge of the right to vote filed by Evelyn Martin against Benny Bryant and to cancel his voter registration.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Snow, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, so ordered. On the 13th.
So you should have before you a Form 257, challenge of the right to vote and correction of registration list that was submitted by Mr. Richard Frisch and received by the Board of Elections on September 20th, 2024. Mr. Frisch, a registered voter in Cuyahoga County, is challenging the voter residency of Pressure Johnson. Mr. Frisch noted in his challenge that Pressure Johnson does not live at 3638 Bainbridge Road in Cleveland Heights. The registration department received a phone call from Mr. Frisch on August 7th, 2024, who indicated that he had received mail from the Board of Elections for Pressure Johnson, which prompted Mr. Frisch's voter challenge. Per the Cuyahoga County Property Summary Report, Mr. Frisch has been the owner of 3638 Bainbridge Road in Cleveland Heights since January of 2010. Pressure Johnson has had no voter activity since initially registering in June of 2024. Further, the voter registration form for Pressure Johnson was circulated by Second Street Associates.
Is it June of 2024 or July of 2024? July. Of 20 July 3rd, 2024.
July 3rd.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you again. Chair will ask, is Mr. Frisch present or on Zoom?
I am.
Yes, hello, Mr. Frisch. For the record, we'll ask our court reporter to swear you in so that you may give your testimony to the board.
Okay.
Yes, so would you raise your right hand, please?
Hi, my camera doesn't work, sorry.
Oh, there
Okay,
you go.
we see you.
There you are.
All right, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you show that you got?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Frisch, what is your residence, sir?
3638 Bainbridge Road, Cleveland Heights.
Okay, thank you. And has Fletcher Johnson ever resided at any point at that residence?
Has not, no.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments that you would like to make for the board, to the
No,
board?
just, he's never lived here, or that's it.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Board members, any questions?
Thank you for attending.
You're welcome.
Yes. Thank you, sir, for your diligence in this
Yes,
matter.
thank you.
I believe that we have all the information that we need, so I move to uphold the challenge, the right to vote filed by Richard Frisch against Fletcher Johnson, and that her voter registration be canceled.
Second.
Second by Ms. Chappelle. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it, is so ordered. Thank you so much, Mr. Frisch.
Thank you.
All right, on to item 14, Mr. Reed.
Thank you. You should have before you a Form 257, challenge of the right to vote in correction of registration list that was submitted by Mr. Ronald Janke and received by the Board of Elections on September 27th, 2024. Mr. Janke, a registered voter in Cuyahoga County, is challenging the voter residency of Joshua Lewis. Mr. Jenke noted in his challenge that Joshua Lewis has never lived at 105 Easton Lane in Moreland Hills. And the two families who owned the residence before Mr. Jenke did not know of anyone named Joshua Lewis living at the residence. Mr. Jenke had received mailings from the Board of Elections from the Secretary of State's office in Joshua Lewis's name in 2022 and 2024, which prompted Mr. Jenke's voting challenge. Per the Cuyahoga County Property Summary Report, Mr. Jenke has been the owner of 105 Easton Lane in Moreland Hills since July of 1984. Joshua Lewis has had no voter activity since his initial hearing in September of 2022. Further, the voter registration form on file from Joshua Lewis was circulated by Black Book Strategies.
And thank you, Mr. Reed. Again, similar fact. Chair will ask, is Mr. Jenke present? Oh, Mr. Jenke's on Zoom. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. We will ask our court reporter to please swear you in.
Sir, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that you shall answer to God?
I do.
Good morning, Mr. Jenke. Thank you. Could you say for the record your address, please?
105 Easton Lane, Moreland Hills, 44022.
And to the best of your knowledge, has Joshua Lewis ever resided at that location?
I know no one by the name of Joshua Lewis, and he has not resided there in the 40 years that my family have resided there.
Right.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Jenke from the board?
No, other than thank you for reaching out and being on top of this, and pretty straightforward, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Jenke. Hearing no other, let me ask, is Mr. Lewis present? Mr. Lewis? Not on Zoom, not present. Chair, no, for the record, he is not here. So I move to uphold the challenge of the right to vote filed by Ronald Jenke against Joshua Lewis, and that his voter registration be canceled.
Second.
Second by Ms. Chappelle. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it, is so ordered. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. McCaffrey.
Do you see any of these same situations outside of these Black Forest and these other groups?
Black Fork and Second Street.
It's very rare that we would see these scenarios.
It seems odd, like somebody would have a list of, where do you want me to register? We're here useless.
Or maybe-
I mean, I didn't come up with a,
His zip code wasn't
Legitimate.
correct though, so maybe they're just filling in numbers, I don't know, you know?
I mean, how would you know that house even exists?
I don't know.
So,
Sounds like somebody.
yeah, I know we have some dialogue with these, just to piggyback on McCafferty's question. We have dialogue with these organizations that are registering folks. And we talked about these, or this fact pattern with, either of these organizations.
We, with both organizations, with Second Street and Black Fork. I mean, we've had conversations, we've had them into the office. Explaining to what's happening, and I would, at least Black Fork, that's who I've engaged more with. Their leadership has definitely been more involved and receptive and understanding, and they try to monitor their circulators and engage in either corrective action or dismissing them.
They have Q&A process.
All those things. So they have, I would say, you know, and we invited those entities to a previous board meeting to discuss with them. And I think one thing we have seen, and it's not a Cuyahoga thing, because this is
Statewide.
going around with, at least I know with Hamilton and Franklin, probably where I communicate the most with, that it's happened there. I think after the last board meeting, I think Black Fork in particular kind of really has, I don't know if they have dropped anything off or it's been very minimal to what they even, I think they've kind of have stopped some of their registration efforts. Second Street has not, but they were never the lead entity either. They were kind of a smaller operation. So they, so we've had conversations, they've done coding on their cards, we've tried to work with them, and they've worked with us, again, Black Fork, more so, but Sonny can probably speak to it, and,
I'm not trying to demonize these organizations. I believe that we should be registering voters.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong. But when we see patterns like this, you know, we just want to make sure these organizations are implementing some sort of Q&A in their own shop. And I guess the question I have is for these folks who clearly have signed registration cards for places where they don't reside, are we referring them
Right.
to, you know, for additional action? Or what are we doing with
Because isn't
that?
this also tied to our ongoing referral?
Right,
Remember
exactly.
we mentioned that last meeting?
and
where-
that's, yeah, so to that point, you know, what the board did at a previous meeting was instead of having to make a motion every meeting, we have these, allowing Deputy Director Keller and myself to send stuff. So after this meeting, we will send this information
Oh, good.
and share it with the Public Integrity Unit, Secretary of State's office.
And is the Attorney General still involved in, I think the last meeting you said that they were involved as well.
I think the Attorney General gets involved with a lot of the things that go through public integrity,
Oh, okay.
but I know, and that particular, I think that was dealing somewhat with the Elsinore address and those referrals to there, that
Okay.
they were more so, I think, making some movement on those referrals that literally we did over a year ago.
Well.
Thank you.
It kind of makes you wonder how many more of these are out there, that people aren't picking up the phone and saying, hey, this doesn't belong.
We still have another hearing, so I want to get through that.
Mhm.
And so, Mr. Weed, go to 15, please.
Okay.
You should have before you a Form 257 challenge of the rights of vote and correction of registration lists that was submitted by Mrs. Annetta M. Williams and received by Board of Elections on September 27th, 2024. Mrs. Williams, a registered voter in Cuyahoga County, is challenging the voter residency of Deborah Chester. Mrs. Williams noted in her challenge that Deborah Chester does not live at 2515 North Taylor Road, Apartment 11 in Cleveland Heights, but lives in New York. When contacted via phone, Mrs. Williams noted that she does know Mrs. Chester. However, Mrs. Williams had again reiterated that Mrs. Chester has never lived with her. In September of 2021, in accordance with the National Change of Address Maintenance Program, Mrs. Chester's address was changed from 216 Center Road, Apartment 102 in Bedford to 2515 North Taylor Road, Apartment 11 in Cleveland Heights on September of 2021. Mrs. Chester has not voted at the 2515 North Taylor Road, Apartment 11 address, nor has had any voter activity since signing the registration form for the 216 Center Road, Apartment 102 address dated in April 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Weed.
This is a quick question.
Yes.
So this is that Ms. Chester's voter history indicates she voted in only the November 8, 2016 presidential election. Where did she vote from there?
She had voted, in Winslow Heights.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Is Miss Annetta Williams present? In person or online? Okay. Deborah Chester, is Deborah Chester present in person or online? For the record, neither are present. We have the facts before us, so I'm prepared to move,
Right.
to challenge the right to vote by Annetta Williams and to uphold that challenge against Deborah Chester and to cancel Deborah Chester's voter registration.
Second.
Second by Ms. Chappelle. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, it's so ordered.
Very good.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, on to human resources. A personnel agenda, and this has been standard practice of the board. We will, staff working more than 35 hours up to including 40 hours during, these identified weeks during this voting, season. We receive straight time pay for time worked and with compensation time and exchange time up to a maximum of 5 hours per week, 10 hours during the pay period, and time worked beyond 40 hours will be accrued as either compensation time or exchange time according to the CCDOE current policies. And Director Perlotti, correct me if I'm wrong, this has been standard practice.
And we do things in the biggest elections when OBM is supportive of us with the funding, to which I would qualify this as a big election. And OBM has created the funding, and this one, as we know, really a 3-page ballot, and the certification will be cut by 1 week. They were really, people will be living here. So I know staff is extremely appreciative of it, and this will be for a 3-pay period. And we have done this multiple times in the past.
And for context, a 3-pay period is about 6 weeks.
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
great. Thank you. So I move the approval of the personnel agenda. Second by Ms. Chappelle. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. On to new business, our director and deputy director, the floor is either or.
I guess I'll go first. You go first. Just good morning, everybody. Just to give you a brief update on, November 5th election. Yesterday was closed registration department, was here till 9 p.m. receiving, voters to come in and register or update their registration. It was very brisk, it was very robust. Actually, it's been leading up to these days. So till 9 p.m. And they've received cards from registration groups, individuals, and so forth. Today, election support will be going out to our NVR agencies, mostly Bureau of Motor Vehicles and libraries, picking up any registration cards that were received on time and bringing them here to be processed. In addition, any registration cards received in the mail would today and thereafter that were postmarked by yesterday or before will also be accepted as on time. Early in-person voting began today, as you probably saw on your way in. I spoke with Steve Dell. He said that they processed about 175 voters in the first hour. And prior to this meeting, they were up to 300. I'm sure they're quite a ways away. For voters, you can go on our website. We do have 4 parking lots available, including our ADA parking lot. We have a good map there that people can see where our Campus International, our the lot next to that, and also our lot across the street off Prospect are available for voters. And they can go on our website to see that map as well. Also there, they can find our voting hours, which for the first 2 weeks will be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then in week 3, it expands till 6 o'clock in the evening by 1 hour. And then the last week is pretty much 7:30 to 7:30. The last 2 weekends do include weekend voting.
Oh, okay.
So, and then as a reminder for voters as they come in, that they will need to present a photo ID, which would be a driver's license, state ID, or an interim BMV driver's license, as well as passport, military ID, Ohio National Guard ID, or Veteran for Affairs photo ID as well. Director Perlotti talked about our ballot collection, which will be beginning this Friday. Absentee department staff have processed 154,000 vote by mail applications. Today is the first day we're legally allowed to start mailing out those ballots, so it'll be a big shipment of them going out today. So anyone who has submitted a vote by mail application up to this point will be receiving their ballot either end of this week or beginning of next week. So,
Do we track our ballots?
yes, yeah, thank you, yeah. We do have, and really our Track My Ballot tool is very good. You go on our website, you click on voters, then from there you can see Track My Ballot. And all the voter has to do is put in their last name and date of birth, and they'll be able to see what was the date that we processed their application, what was the date that their application or their ballot was mailed out, and then when we received their ballot. So this way, people who are a little bit unsure about the mail potentially, or just want to have that extra knowledge to know that their ballot was received, they'll have that assurance to go on Track My Ballot. Also, we do have that system available on our phone automated system as well. So someone could call in, you push the buttons and you can find that information out as well. As a safety net, for some reason, if somebody's vote by mail ballot did not get here, you can still go to the polls on election day. And you would of course vote a provisional ballot because you've already been issued one ballot. But as long as that vote by mail ballot was not received, that properly completed provisional ballot will be counted.
Okay, just a quick question, just to clarify, those folks that came in to update their registrations, even if they didn't, they can still vote if they're currently registered, but they would have to vote a provisional ballot.
Yes.
Is that correct?
And
that would then serve, and then we figure out what's going on, based on the provisional ballot, and just explain that again, because I think some
Right.
people feel as if, gee, I missed the update my registration or my registration, my ability to register to vote by, October 7th. But I didn't update, but that doesn't mean you can't, you moved, that doesn't mean you can't vote.
Right, the requirement is to be properly registered 30 days before the election. So provisional ballots is a good thing. A lot of times people think, oh man, how many provisional ballots were there? No, provisional ballots is that safety net. So for instance, if you had a name change or an address change and you weren't able to get it processed prior to 30 days before the election, the provisional ballot, the cover of it acts as a registration card. So we're able to update your address based upon that. Also, people who were issued a vote by mail ballot, if for some reason maybe they lost it or whatever, they can still come in and vote provisional. There's multiple reasons why provisional ballots are there. Basically, it allows the person to vote on election day, give us the information, and then we can kind of figure things on the back end. So it doesn't put the pressure on the poll workers to figure everything out there because obviously they don't have all the tools right there. But what it does is captures that person's vote with the information and allows us to deal with it on the back end. Yeah.
One other thing, Tony, if I may, just share. Just on the Ohio ID piece, so we had been asking, and you guys had given us some data about the impacts of the new Ohio ID law on past elections. And we basically had said, ultimately, we didn't see significant impacts. Probably and presumably because the elections were smaller elections. I have seen some news articles about the potential for there to be significant issues and impacts because of the size of this election. So I would like you guys to monitor in the way that, I forgot, did Peter James put that report together?
He did, yeah.
Just one more thing to add to your plate, we really do need to really see if there is a significant impact because of the Ohio ID law. And this will be a major election where we would be able to really see if there's see the numbers to see if there's.
Yeah.
Can you guys monitor that, kind of give us a report on that at post-election?
Sure,
See where we are.
absolutely. Peter's already working on it.
On that, okay.
And so I'm just to piggyback on that. I mean, I think what I would anticipate is since the law changed in 23, the no ID percentage has gone to become like the second highest rejection cost. Not registered is the first and probably will maintain to be that. And then no valid ID has risen to the second, and I would anticipate that would stay the same for this, even as much as we are telling individuals, to bring ID to the polls, even if you need to vote provisionally, I wouldn't see that changing. So, I think everything's proportionate. More provisionals means more rejected, means that probably will fall into that category. So I think we will see that, and Peter will track that. And one thing on the ID, and so again, please make sure as you're talking to voters, earlier this year, this might not be the correct entity, but I'm just gonna say the state of Ohio and the BMV made electronic driver's license available. That is not valid ID for voting. So there has to be a physical card. And so we want to make sure that we also stress that the electronic driver's license that individuals could have on their phone, it will not be acceptable.
Are you including that in your conference on Friday or?
Yes, so I talked about it yesterday. In a perfect world, they would have rolled that out on November 6th, but they didn't. So we want to make sure that, because we live in such a technology world, that that won't, if that's what they show up with and that's all they have, then they will be pushed to the provisional process, and then we'll have to come here to cure because it won't be done. So we want to make sure that that's a key point that we want to push out with these individuals. And then also, as far as the provisional being a safeguard.
Oh, real quick, I don't mean to interrupt, but you were doing updates for the public, what to bring. Because there are some people that might not have voted since 2020, given the nature of these elections.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as long as we, yes, we've been beating the drum, these are things, but you need to vote. I guess, do you intend to continue that with your social media from this agency? So all the voters know everything they need. Plus, the notification we sent out, I think it had that in there, right?
It had the acceptable. I
Yeah,
don't think we commented on the electronic.
okay. Well, no, I'm just saying the whole thing that the ID is needed.
Oh,
and you
yeah.
did include that.
So I mean, this will be, one, two, the fourth countywide
Right.
with it. So, but we do have a lot of once every 4-year voters, to your point.
Right.
This is a lot of things different from 2020 for
I
them.
mean, as
So,
long as we're up, I mean,
yeah,
that's our job to let people know that's what you need to vote, have a good experience, and I
absolutely.
mean, yeah.
I mean,
But that is an important point, because
Yeah.
we're saying what is acceptable, and, we don't say anything about electronic, I hadn't even thought about that.
I haven't either, until you mentioned it, I didn't
Yeah.
realize they did that,
so we want to minimize surprises on election day, so
Yeah.
we'll speak
Right,
to
that makes
that.
sense.
And the provisional is a good thing. It is a safeguard. But individuals, if they are the 30 days and they didn't update exactly everything Director Calver said, they're not allowed to vote by mail, but they can come to early in person. So they don't even have to wait till election day. They can go and vote provisionally on election day, but they can come here because you can cast a provisional ballot really in person. You just can't cast a vote by mail provisional ballot too. So they do have, I would say 2 to 3 options available to them. So if someone does, well, I don't want to wait till election day or I'm not around, they can't come today through the final Sunday on the appropriate hours to take care of that here too. So we want to, again, make sure everybody has all their options.
The ballot department, they're currently, logic and accuracy testing all of our election day ballot scanners. As you know, every single ballot scanner that goes out to a polling location on election day is tested ahead of time to make sure that the precinct ballots that it is able to read, because not every machine is targeted for only the precincts in that polling location, that it accurately reads all of the oval positions correctly. So they should be completing that testing this week. Also, they've begun quality assuring the actual ballots that will be sent out on election day, giving it a final quality assurance, making before they're handed over for packing. This past Friday, we did have a public test, which the public was invited to come and get an insider's view of the testing that takes place. And Director Perletti did a great job presenting a lot of additional information to those people who showed up. Unfortunately, there wasn't as much of the public as I would have hoped to see, But we did have several members of the media who have since put out some really good informational stories on it, utilizing a lot of the film clip and video that we had provided off of our website, as well as Director Perlotti making a clear presentation of the testing that takes place. So I think that was a very positive thing. And then also poll worker department, they continue to place and train workers. I'm glad to report that 86% of our PEOs have already been trained, and the rest are scheduled for their training. Staff is honing in on more hiring positions like drop-off assistants and transport officials at this time, as well as our agency overall looking for election night workers. So that is a good opportunity for individuals to come and assist with unloading the bags or cleaning materials out, as well as we have several sports teams or clubs join together and either earn money individually, or college students earn money individually for themselves, or collectively raise money for their group. So this is a great opportunity that we would encourage people to get involved in, and it does definitely help us with our work.
Was most of the training for the poll workers online?
It was a division between those who were experienced returning workers were offered the opportunity to do online training. They were also offered the opportunity to come in for in-person training, but all new PEOs that come in for training, as well as our voting locations.
One other question I had is, when do we start dispersing bipartisan teams to go to the nursing homes? Are we still doing that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that begins now, yeah.
Today,
Because
okay.
today's
That's right.
first day of early voting for
That's just
multiple
wanted to
levels.
make sure.
Yeah.
Is the nursing home list available? And sometimes it's a struggle because candidates or parties ask for those. What's the
I
process?
think we got last week we got, this week,
So, yeah, what will happen is on Fridays, we will publish the following week's schedule of where we're gonna be going. And I do know that last Friday, that schedule was published.
Okay.
And so we do it a week at a time, just because as things fluctuate with nursing homes, sometimes they cancel on us because something may happen, or we bring somebody else into the mix, but we will put that out every Friday.
How do we get that? How do we get that list? I mean, how are nursing, I mean, we'd like to think that do we look at where voters are located and then identify how does that happen? I want to make sure seniors everywhere who are in facilities have the opportunity to vote. How do we know nursing homes? Do they call us? Do we select? How does that work? I never even really thought about that.
That process starts months ago, into which we have, if you can imagine, a lot of assisted nursing homes, assisted living facilities in Cuyahoga County. And so we have a good list of people who are repeat customers, and we look out and we reach out proactively to the different facilities, let them know that we have services available. And we talk to them about us either going to a location and helping assisting individuals, or also voting by mail. And what some locations will want is they will want to utilize the vote by mail for them, so they will turn in their applications collectively to that division, and they'll go ahead and we'll process and we'll get the ballots out to those locations.
There's no prohibition on, do they need 12 people? Okay, almost that.
It's actually depends on what application they put.
I'm
There's
just
different
curious. I
ones.
mean, hey, that raises an issue, just wondering. Okay.
So, so we coordinate with them, and what they will do is, a lot of times an event coordinator or someone at the facility will let individuals know, anyone interested in wanting to vote. And they go ahead and they work with them.
On a serious note, then, is that statutorily provided for, that they can vote, seniors can vote? That the nursing homes can help facilitate senior voting in those facilities? I'm just curious. I mean, this whole thing raises an issue.
There's a couple different versions of so Mark, maybe you just call, whatever you need to, but there's a couple different versions of a absentee ballot application. There would be the standard that we would complete, and then there's a confined voter, hospital type. So there's a hospital one, and then there's also a confined voter / like nursing home assisted living.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
All these years, you learn something new.
So there's different things with that, and that one allows for the bipartisan team to assist individuals in doing that, so. We,
Thank you.
we do follow the law.
I know what it is. I know it is.
So we do that.
Thank you.
So I was gonna add just a few more things. Deputy Director Calgary hit most of my items, which is fine, but of course,
Yeah.
I've always got things to say.
Oh, yeah.
Just in general, you know, we have built our plan on 71% voter turnout. Looking to historical data.
71%.
71%. So.
The guesstimate.
That's our, right, it's our educated guesstimate.
Big guesstimate that looks nowhere.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
It is our best educated guess that we have. And again, looking to historical data, between 69 and 71% is kind of where it falls. And I think it will stay there. And maybe it goes up a little bit, but again, to go up a percentage, it's like another 10,000 voters or so, but the higher they're expected, the less fluctuation you have. It's when you have that only expected 25% and all of a sudden 40. So I think we'll be pretty consistent with that. The vote by mail, we are about 20,000 applications behind where we were in 2016. And my opinion is you don't make that up at this point. So we'll probably stick with that. So I think that will be down a little bit, but again, I don't think that the 71% goes down. I think they shift the method in which they cast their ballot. And I think primarily that will be going to the polls on election day to make up for that. I think we currently have enough ballots to cover that, but again, I talked about before, we're gonna do an additional step and then be ready to make sure that we can cover everything.
You don't think we're gonna have, just a crazy amount of folks coming down to vote in person?
We will. I think we're gonna have 53,000 plus,
Yeah.
which will be, I think, higher than what we typically have had. And we can handle it. And this, you know, when we got the clear ballot equipment, we went to the ballot on demand in the voting room, game changer. We will still have lines, but we will process through, I think, very quickly, which is great. You saw when you park in the back parking lot, we're doing, you know, we had talked about this previously, and you have your visions and then actually you see the real deal. So we have that nice big tent on the property. Can you go back and forth? It has 6 switchbacks. Again, the distance of that is pretty much from the property line down to the corner that we're able to bring on property. So that gets them out of elements when it's rainy, which is great. And it gets the individuals within the 100-foot radius. Campaigning is great. It's part of the process. However, you know, sometimes the voters get uncomfortable depending on how aggressive this particular person can be. So we'll work with them on that. Deputy Director Calver said we have lots of parking, which is great. We do, like I had mentioned earlier, have a early in person and ballot collection tab on our website, which has the parking map, and we are labeling them lot A, B, and C. I mean, we know Kansas International, Karpinski, and all this other stuff, but we kind of have that there to tell the voters how to access it, whether it's off 30th or Chester, whatever it may be. During the weekdays, it'll be about 250 non-ADA parking spots available on a daily basis. They are all surface lots, so no one has to navigate any kind of stairs in a parking structure, and they're all fairly close to the building.
We have a way to manage, given all the activity, curbside.
So curbside will happen in our parking lot. We have a pretty good program with that downstairs. When individuals need to do it, they will park in one of the ADA lots. Now, we have, and this will, is relevant to it, we did hire in the previous meeting, we paid for off-duty law enforcement officers. They reported today for the first time. There's 4 associated here to complement the Deputy Sheriff's Protective Services officer. At least 1, most of the time 2, will be stationed in our parking lot to help with parking, having cars come in and out of spots, but also if an individual needs assistance, they can help to flag people on the inside if there's curbside, and then we have a whole standalone on-demand printer that we utilize for that. We put codes and numbers on cars and everything to help make sure that that's facilitated. So we have that plan and process. Again, we have, I think, sufficient security to provide security, but not to be overwhelming and intimidating. So a safe environment for all individuals who come. We will have an officer who will be stationed at the corner of East 30th and Euclid, because you will have some individuals parking south of Euclid, north of Euclid. Some will come walking from east to here. So that person will help to, if the line is just in front of the building, go ahead right there. But if it's when it starts to turn as a corner and goes down, we'll help to direct those individuals to where the line starts. So someone doesn't inadvertently cut the line. So we're trying to account for all of those items. We, something also with the tent and working with our legal counsel and trying to figure out how we do all of these things is the tent in the parking lot, the big tent is actually the official entrance into the voter line. And it's from that spot that we create our 100-foot radius zone of no campaigning. That and then the physical door on the front. So what that means for this election is that we won't have campaigning physically on the Board of Elections property. As soon as you go outside of that, that's beyond the 100 feet. So the apartment building next door, that's in play. In front of Channel 5, if people are coming that way across the street, coming from that lot, they can hand out all the literature that they want. But I do have permits for the city of Cleveland for obstruction. We need to be able to provide pathways both ways on the sidewalk for voters in line to go into the building, and then whether it's voters coming to get in line or the general public walking down. So with that, you have to mark that off so you can have the line on the sidewalk and the curb. A lot of times they stick the campaign signs is within 10 feet of the line, so we can't have that. So we have noticed that to all the campaigns. We've noticed it for political parties. They understand. So we told them that not that you can't engage in electioneering, you just can't do it on the physical boundaries of that. And that's a safety reason. And the city of Cleveland's like, yeah, you better make sure that you're not forcing people to walk into the street to go down because the sidewalk is completely packed.
So we gotten sign offs and the permits and all that has been approved by the city for all of the street events.
Yeah, we
No
applied.
surprises on that. Everybody's all good and everything's signed off on.
Yes, exactly. So, we received all that from the city of Cleveland. We've had conversations with the city of Cleveland in the permitting department, and they're like, yep, this is what this means, as well as with leadership in city of Cleveland's public safety division, who told us, yes, do not push anyone into the street to walk. You have to keep thoroughfares for them. So we're doing all of that. Also, what we're doing is we are providing a specific parking lot that's on the map for campaigners and observers. It's up on Prospect. It's a good sized lot, so if people want to engage in, again, in electioneering and campaigning, there's a place for them. They are not permitted to park in the voter parking spaces. We are providing something for them, a 50 spot location, the same thing for the observers, because what happens is sometimes the campaigners try to take a substantial amount of the voter parking, and then our voters don't have parking. And so now we're disenfranchising voters by having campaigners. I know it's part of the process, but statutorily, we need to be able to provide access for our voters. So we have this lot for them. It is signed where it is up on Prospect. And so again, we provided that for political parties as well as we got an email from Candidate Petition Services of all the candidates in the election, and we have emailed all of them this information.
Do we know how many observers we're gonna have and have those discussions with them gone on? Those planned or have they happened yet?
Yes, so we did have we have planned Zoom or Teams call with observers. We invited the, state and, the state and county Republican and Democratic parties, to which representatives from all of those groups attended. It was a very productive, meeting. We talked about, there's, a couple different deadlines, for the observer filings. So for example, the early in person deadline has passed. The election day deadline has not passed, but both the two big parties have, submitted in their paperwork for both. What they do sometimes is they provide a placeholder spot, which is normal, and then then they will provide us with finalized names when need be.
When will we know how many observers we will ultimately have?
So we will have, what we should have for the early in person on a daily basis is we should have one person from the Republican Party and one person from the Democratic Party. They did, submit in for that to happen. Skip is the contact, for them.
What about for election day?
They will, as of, right now, I believe the Democratic Party is going to have, I think, an individual at each polling location. And right now, the Republican Party that's their same goal, but they're probably around 150 to 200 locations. So they're still, working towards that. So we are pre-printing badges for all of that. Skip is the conduit working. What we don't want are all the observers to come here to get their badges and all that. So we've done this before. We work with the parties to provide it to them, and because the parties do conduct training of the observers, so they will do that. They'll take care of the credentials, and we have a designated super secret phone number that a handful of individuals from both parties will have that Skip will monitor, that they'll be able to access. We do that on purpose because if everyone under the sun has it, then what happens is the things that we really need to know about, we don't. We hear about the piddly, someone's voting with the black pen instead of a blue pen and vice versa. No, that's okay. We want to hear about, hey, somebody is not letting someone into a poll place or whatever it may be. So that's where it was very productive. It was a joint call with everybody. I think it went well. So we did have that, and I want to remind everyone, 3-page ballot across the whole county. It is, to mail it back, it is $1.01 or 2 forever stamps, which is what most people would do. That'll get it here. And when they go to the polls, and we'll hit on this more so closer. We need to be patient when they insert their ballots. It's 3-page. Member McCafferty working out in the polls, so we can appreciate this. Otherwise, all of a sudden you start getting all kinds of beeping and bells and everything going off. So we stressed that heavily in our poll worker training. And again, one of the things too, we're talking about education wise is.
Do you not come to vote at the Board of Election, election?
Yeah, that will be our last minute one that we always do. I think they're listening more. But it's state issue 1. And it has nothing to do with anyone's opinion on it, but for the first time, it is, the ballot language is bigger than 1 page on the ballot. So we're making sure that we want to educate people up on that it will start in every ballot. It starts on page 4, which is the back of sheet 2, and then it finishes on page 5, which is the front of sheet 3. And so what we don't want to have happen, or try to minimize, is people starting to read it and going, those guys and gals screwed up down there. They forgot to mark on page 4, vote yes or no. And then on page 5, where's the English part? Because it starts off in Spanish. So we want to continue to let people know that you will have a full sheet of just text. And then the question will be called on the next page. Again, not speaking to what the actual content of it is, but just, it's unique. We've never had it before. But those were some of the key things that I wanted to build upon with what Deputy Director Calver said. What other questions does anybody have for either of us?
Yeah.
With multiple page ballots, these new scanners kick them out if like one page is blank. That's just I know the old DS200s did, and it caused a lot of confusion until sometimes. So then they had to hit another button and say, no, I want, it's just, it'll ask you, do you want it returned?
It,
Confused a lot of people.
but it still does ask the questions. Both blank pages and overvotes, you know, and,
Overvotes as well.
yeah, if someone overvotes a and it'll call out the question. You overvoted this contest. Do you want to, you want it back, do you want to accept as is, and then they'll make that selection. Did I? Okay, there you go. Trust but verify. So we'll do that.
Any questions?
Oh, just, and the vote by mail, so in today's mail, 106,000 ballots are going out today. And this Thursday, an additional 41,000 are going out. And we are, we're on a day-to-day basis. So an application, so on a Track My Ballot tool, if someone sees that we process it today, they can expect the ballot to go in the mail 2 days later. And then however long the postal service takes to get that to them.
All right, thank you, Director Bellotti and Deputy Director Callender. Chair has received public request comment forms from Doreen Miller, Suzanne Sonnet, David Fennell, and Donna Lanza. So if those individuals are here, Chair has been advised that you're coming as a collective and that you're going to ask Doreen Miller to come first. Chair recognizes Doreen Miller. So please, ma'am, come to the mic. Welcome. If you would just spell your name and address for the court reporter, and then you may have the floor.
Yes. Good morning, let's My name is Doreen Palencic Miller. I reside in Wayne County at 35.
Can you spell your name, please?
My first name Doreen, Dorene. Maiden name Palencic, Polensek. Last name Miller, Miller.
Thank you.
Welcome. I reside at 3590 Snyder Drive, Worcester, Ohio, in Wayne County. I was born and raised in Cuyahoga County. I have lived in Ohio my entire life. I'm a volunteer, not a spokesperson, with United Sovereign Americans. United Sovereign Americans is a nationwide, completely volunteer organization of thousands of active volunteers. We proclaim it as our civil right as citizens of the United States of America to have free, fair, and legally valid elections, applying existing laws applicable to a valid election process. United Sovereign Americans' highly credentialed national data team has gathered data showing alarming discrepancies in our state's voter database. Using only official data provided by our state election officials of the 2022 election, our audit shows that the 2022 election may not have been accurate or legally compliant. We are not saying one candidate won over another, or that any election should be overturned. The state's official data from a certified election shows that the votes as counted were not all valid and accurate under existing laws. While the numbers are staggering, one thing is clear, they don't add up. Just as your checkbook needs to be balanced, so must our votes. Today, our team of volunteers will read to you a resolution for a legally valid 2024 general election. This resolution demands applying and enforcing existing laws to end the inaccuracy and uncertainty plaguing our elections. A summary of our audit findings of the 2022 election voter roll database and the laws that apply are included in the resolution. The summary of findings and a request for an investigation has already been shared with state election officials and law enforcement. We want election officials to understand these issues need to be taken seriously.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And the chair notes that Ms. Miller will reserve a portion to come back for final statement. Thank you. The Senate, the chair recognizes Susan Sonnet.
Good morning. My name is Susan Sonnet, S-U-S-A-N, Sonnet, S-O-N-N-E-T. Thank you for having us. I'm going to read the first part of the resolution on my 40-year resident of Wayne County in Ohio. Resolution for a legally valid 2024 general election. Whereas it is a recognized civil right in the United States for every citizen to have free and fair elections. Quote, and the right of suffrage can be denied by a debasement or dilution of the weight of citizens' vote just as effectively as by wholly prohibiting the free exercise of the franchise, end quote. Reynolds versus Sims, 377 U.S. 533, 1964. Whereas it is the duty of our elections to guarantee our elections are accurate and free from distortion or manipulation. Quote, Congress seeks to guard the election of members of Congress against any possible unfairness by compelling everyone concerned in holding the election to a strict and scrupulous observance of every duty devolved upon him while so engaged. The evil intent consists in disobedience to the law, end quote, in Re Coy 127 U.S. 731, 1888. Whereas our constitutional system of representative government only works when the following four tenets of an election are upheld. 1, the voter rolls must be accurate. National Voter Registration Act of 1993. 2, votes counted must be from eligible voters. U.S. Constitution 14th Amendment, Section 2. 3, the number of votes counted must equal the number of voters who voted. Number 4, there can be no more than 1 in 125,000 ballots in error by the voting system. Help America Vote Act of 2002. Whereas an open source audit of the Ohio 2022 general election conducted by Ohio State citizens has uncovered evidence of massive inaccuracies that violate both federal and state laws, including 1,046,431 ineligible or uncertain registration violations found within the Ohio State voter roll database. That's 1,046,431. 602,631 votes cast by ineligible or uncertain registrants. That's 602,631. 1,162,079 more votes counted than voters who voted in the 2022 general election at the time of certification. No one knows who cast them. That's 1,162,079. 713,262 apparent voting violations in excess of the legal standard of system accuracy for a valid federal election. Maximum allowable system errors for the 2022 general election in Ohio was 34. We had 713,262. Certification as defined by law and attestation of accuracy and compliance appears to have been fraudulent and illegal. Whereas these findings trample legal accuracy requirements of the voting system during a federal election. Accuracy is defined as the ability of the system to capture and report the specific selections and absence of selections made by a voter without error. Whereas the intent of the voters must be known factually before certification can lawfully be conducted. Certification of an election that varies from the law is an abridgment of the civil rights of the citizens, a fraud ab initio. United States v. Throckmorton, 98 U.S. 61, 1878. Quote, from time immemorial, an election to public office has been, in point of substance, no more and no less than the expression by qualified electors of their choice of candidates, end quote. United States v. Classic, 313 U.S. 299, 1941. Whereas Ohio's 2022 general election appears to have been invalid, depriving us of guaranteed protection of our natural rights under a government duly and provably chosen by us, the American people, resulting in incalculable damage to our families, our way of life, and the fabric of this United States.
Thank you.
Be nice.
Chair recognizes David Fennell. I hope I pronounced that right.
Mr. Recorder, my name is David Martin Funnell, David, M for Martin, F as in Frank, U, N-N-E-L-L. I've been a resident of Bay Village, Ohio since 2021. And I would read this. Therefore, we call upon our representatives to provide relief to the people and the assurance of domestic tranquility by joining us in demanding a valid 2024 general election that upholds these existing laws and equitable principles of law. Number one, proof of citizenship, identity, and eligibility to register and vote, not anonymous attestation. Number two, voter rolls certified, accurate, and available for public review and challenge 30 days before the start of early voting. Voters added after that date must bring proof of citizenship, identity, and address in person to a qualified official at each polling place. Number three, hand-marked secure ballots similar to currency. Where imaging technology is used for tabulation, the security features must be verifiable in the ballot image. Number four, systems, machines, security measures, infrastructure, and conduct are required to be compliant with federal law for fraud protection regarding risk assessment, certification, testing, and implementation. Number five, adjudication must be signed off by party, candidate, and trained citizen witnesses after being given full and effective observation rights. Candidates and trained citizens must be allowed immediate access to ballots, ballot images, and cast vote records. Number six, ballots, regardless of entry source, election operations, and systems, must maintain end-to-end chain of custody from voter to vote count to final canvass, including auditability and witnessed transfer with paper records. Number seven, the National Institutes of Standards and Technology compliant, randomized, statistically valid end-to-end audit with a 95% confidence level of all elections pursuant to the 14th Amendment, Section 2, must be performed. These audits are to be conducted by qualified, insured, and bonded security forensics or financial auditors, not personnel from within the election system. Reconciliation will include the vote count, real physical ballots, adjudication, cast vote records, ballot count, qualified voter count, custody transfer, and all of the paper and electronic election systems, including logs. Number eight, if the total of all unique variances above is more than 10% of the margin of victory, a new election must be held in the state where those candidates affected, unless the issues can provably be corrected by a manual hand recount and a full review of records. Number nine, waiver of requirements is not allowed. Only end-to-end system compliance from registration to certification can guarantee the intent of the people is accurately recorded.
Thank you. Thank you. The chair recognizes Donna Lanza.
Hi, I'm Donna Lanza, Donna Lanza. I reside at 11330 Villa Grande Drive, North Royalton, Ohio, and I've been a resident of Ohio for 70 years. I'm a volunteer, not a spokesperson for United Sovereign Americans. You have just heard a powerfully written resolution for a legally valid 2024 general election. The resolution outlined massive inaccuracies from our 2022 election. from registration through certification. It asks for meaningful remedies to proactively protect our civil rights by having a valid 2024 general election for all Americans. The resolution cited many United States Supreme Court precedents that support the need for such actions. Existing election laws should not be ignored. The bottom line, just like your checkbook must balance, so must our votes, but that's not happening. The system that controls our most important right to choose our representatives is not producing an accurate, trustworthy result. Our election system, which is part of our national security infrastructure, can't continue to be ignored. Americans have a civil right to a fair, free, and legally valid election. The resolution demands this by applying and enforcing existing voter laws. The cost to not fix the problem is immeasurable. So I encourage you to support upholding the voter laws by signing this resolution and voting yay. The United Sovereign Americans website, uniteforfreedom.com, showcases our nationwide initiatives and has very informative videos that explain the anomalies and apparent violations of the law that are found in Ohio and other states in our country. The website unite4freedom.com. I encourage you to learn more about United Sovereign Americans at uniteforfreedom.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lanza. And the chair has allotted, I think, Ms. Miller still has 90 seconds left, so well, you.
What you just heard is the culmination of thousands of hours of work by our highly qualified and credentialed data teams from all over the country. Many Americans, including many right here in Ohio, question the worthiness of our elections. We can all agree that we wish this were not the case, but official data shows these concerns are valid and the law says resolving them is essential in securing our liberty. Government representatives on all levels are not being transparent or responsive to what our citizen audits have found. Our right to choose our representatives in legally valid and transparent elections is the foundation upon which our constitutional republic was established and has been bravely protected over the past 2.5 centuries. You have an opportunity to show everyone who defended American liberty and the citizens you represent that you value it also by passing this resolution demanding a valid 2024 general election. We are happy to meet with you to answer questions or review specific data findings. And we thank you so much for your time and attention. I have a copy, official copy of the resolution here. We have a signature page where you can sign and indicate yay or nay. We would appreciate if you were willing to do this today. If not, we will leave it with your clerk with the self-addressed stamp down below.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You've made deposit those documents with our clerk, and we thank you for your time and advocacy.
Thank you.
There being no other business before us, I move that we go into recess.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pell. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Have a great day.